mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
So Jen Singer and I met many, many years ago. She is a long-term survivor of non-Hodgkin's. And because it's the gift that keeps on giving, she had heart failure a couple of years later. And then COVID didn't make things much better either. She's been a writer her whole life and was doing mommy blogs back in the 2000s. And as a medical writer, she mastered the art of converting doctor science jargony nerd stuff into human being conversations. She has a storied career as a professional ghostwriter, and she's the author of the Just Diagnosed Guides, a series of books that you probably should know about the day shit happens, whether it's cancer or heart failure or anything else. It's what to do instead of going to Google and diagnosing yourself with something so much worse than what you already have. It's that and other stuff like how to talk to your neighbors or how to help your neighbors not tell you, but you look great. So here we go, Jen Singer. All right, Jen, I'm going to start the interview by asking you a question I didn't ask you on the show you were on the last time. So returning champion Jen Singer, thanks for coming back to the show, braving the hot seat. I love that you list your high school on LinkedIn.
My high school
Yes.
on LinkedIn. I didn't know I did that, but okay.
I just see that as something that speaks to the character of the person, pride, because you obviously chose to set it up in like 2000. And when did you start using it? Like we're like decade-old LinkedIn people.
Yeah, we're probably one of the first 10 people to ever use it.
Because I list mine, because I'm proud of where
Yeah.
I went to high school. Go Pirates, high school, Staten Island.
Yeah.
But where'd you go to high school?
I went to Ramsey High School in Ramsey, New Jersey.
Sounds really exotic.
It was not exotic at all, but they did vote me most likely to succeed.
Get out of here.
And so I feel a lot of pressure all the time.
How's that going for you?
I don't know if this would be the most likely to succeed, but it's not a failure either. At least I'm still alive.
I always go back to that quote from Toy Story, falling with style.
Yes, exactly.
Story of our lives.
That is the story of our lives. Fallen a couple times.
Yeah. So it's been, I think, God, that must have been like 2 or 3 years ago you're on the show, maybe? It was post-COVID, right?
It was 2 years ago.
You were fresh out of COVID.
We were fresh out of COVID. I came in without a mask on and everything.
Yeah, exactly. So again, you're the trifecta?
I'm the trifecta. Explain that.
Cancer, COVID, heart disease, right?
Yeah.
Heart failure, sorry. What's the difference?
Heart disease is a catch-all term for anything that related to your heart. Heart failure, which needs to be renamed, sounds like your heart's failing and you're going to die immediately, but that is not what heart failure is. It just means that your heart fails to pump enough blood to your organs.
I would agree to rename it. It sounds terrifying.
I have a friend who says you should just call it heart boo-boo. I'm like, okay, that sounds much better.
Okay. Heart owie.
I have a heart owie.
Now, that was a late effect, right?
Yeah, that was because of the chemo I had. I had I think a double the lifetime chance of getting heart failure because I had the atomic bomb of chemo.
Did they tell you that in advance? You might die from.
You know what?
Cure.
If they told me that, it really wouldn't have mattered because it was either I had an aggressive cancer that I was basically 2 months from death. So it's either do this or die. If I had long-term effects from it, that actually was a high-class problem at that time.
Okay.
Oh, long-term, that sounds good.
Right. Well, that's always like we're living in a good problem to have because we're alive to have problems.
Exactly. I agree.
Yeah. So you wrote the Just Diagnosed Guides, but you had to wait till you had heart failure to do it.
That's correct. And that's because I was on the Facebook board.
The what? Face what?
It's this thing where you get dates, I guess, or something like that.
Got it.
And there are all kinds of heart failure, call them boards. And I would see people coming in and panicking because they would Google heart failure. First of all, as we said, failures in the title. Secondly,
Right.
They would Google it, and Google would tell them that they're going to be dead in 5 years because it's Google and there's old statistics online, and that's not correct. So they would panic. And I was a medical writer, and I knew what heart failure was about because when I got heart failure, I Googled it and I got something I wrote in 2015.
Really?
I'm not kidding.
That's like ego surfing. You found yourself. That's amazing.
I was like, thank you, 2015, Jen, because I explained it all to me. But I felt that, you go to what we call Dr. Google, and it scares people and it confuses people if you don't know how to sort through the information. So what if I took just the basics of what they need to know? A lot of what I was doing when I was writing for a hospital here in New York, only make it a little funny and a lot more personal because I've been through it all.
When you walk into that shit happens store, right? The thing you didn't want to happen. You don't go to like heart failure college to get heart failure one day, right?
Right.
What is it you don't know you need, and why do people still go to Google?
They go to Google, I think, because they ask questions, if they ask questions of their doctors, and their doctors confuse them. And sometimes it's because they don't know how to speak in patient ease. Well,
that's a known. Sometimes.
I'm trying to be kind. My doctor's great, but other doctors aren't as good as explaining things. And because they think of questions in the middle of the night and they don't want to call the office every time they have a question. And so they go to, we Google everything. We Google actors on the TV show we're watching. So why wouldn't we Google the thing that's killing us?
Because Google is a hypochondriacal satisfaction machine.
It's true. I think it makes sense that we go there. I also think that there's way the heck too much unfiltered information.
All right. So what tells you you're dying more, Google or WebMD?
Ooh. Well, if you have a diagnosis, going on either one of those isn't as bad as putting in your symptoms and trying to figure out what it is. It could be lymphoma. It could be, erectile dysfunction. It could be whatever it is.
Right.
So at least if you have a diagnosis, you can look them up in both. I think WebMD is better than Google as a whole because it is geared toward patients.
It's vetted enough.
It's vetted enough, but there's nothing like talking to another patient.
Yes.
And I've done it over and over again. Both I had lymphoma, so all of the blood cancer, actually a lot of different people with a lot of different kinds of cancers talk to me just because I can explain these are the things you need to do. These are the questions you need to ask your doctors. This is how your family's going to behave. This is how you might want to behave around your family and what you might not want to tell them.
But you look great.
Oh, my gosh. There was an interview with Will Reeve, Christopher Reeve's son. Did you see that?
Not recently, but I know him.
Excuse me. Anyway.
Name drop.
No, it was with Anderson Cooper very recently on his podcast. And Will talked about after his father passed away, how he realized that everybody would tell him, you're so strong, you're handling this so well. And he was a kid and he thought, oh, well, then if I behave that way, they're going to like me better. So I'm just going to suck up everything, all my grief. And the same thing happens to patients. We think that we have to stay strong and be positive and all of that stuff. And maybe we do for some things, but no, you're allowed to be upset that you're sick. And I like to give people the okay to do that.
Well, permission.
Yeah, permission to be pissed off.
Hey, I know that phrase.
That's a great phrase.
So I'm going to go back to the Livestrong days because I people know that I hope you know, I spent a decade in advertising and I'm a branding nerd. And when I found Livestrong, I was enamored because it was just a well-designed brand. It came out of Nike, and they had a brand promise and a manifesto and a song and everything. But the one thing that bothered me in their manifesto was that they said, we kick in the day you're diagnosed. And I said, no, you don't. Diarrhea does. And I didn't have a show back then quite yet, but if I did, that would have been the name of the show. Diarrhea kicks in the day you're diagnosed. I don't care what Livestrong is. Save my life right now.
Yeah.
Right. Is that similar to, again, what I want you to talk about really is It's not apples to apples, but I'm sure there were so many similar horizontal psychosocial issues and realistic, like real world practical challenges with heart failure.
Compared to cancer, you mean?
Well, I mean, not contest based.
We're not going to compete. Oncology versus cardiology.
Yes.
Who will win?
Cage match.
There was definitely being a patient is the same no matter what you have. You have to deal with the doctors. You have to deal with the diagnosis. You have to deal with the side effects of whatever they're giving you that is making you better. So a lot of that is the same. What was different was that, well, they both tried to kill me. So I don't.
But I mean, finding information. So cardiology for me is, I'm not going to say it's more consumer, but it's been around a long time and there's a lot more information about it and there's different treatments for it. Cancer is, we don't know. There's always new emerging things, right? All right, correct me. Tell me I'm an idiot.
You're an idiot.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
no, you're not an idiot. I understand what you're saying.
I also don't know that, thankfully, I have not been given that gift that
Yeah.
keeps on giving. So educate me.
Well, no, you're right. Heart failure, the medications for heart failure have not changed dramatically in the last 20 or 30 years. There is a new one that's the miracle drug that everyone else can take, and I can't take it because
I think that was intentional.
it lowers your blood pressure, and I already have low blood pressure. I nearly passed out while cooking, which is not advisable.
Was the flame on?
Flame was on. My kids were home, thank goodness. And they are adult kids. So, but I think you're right in some ways because there's something about heart conditions that I think people treat differently than cancer. Cancer is you're a warrior, you're going to fight it. They don't want you to be a warrior with a heart condition. They want you to sit down and relax and don't get upset about things. So it is different. You're right.
So the therapy kicks in right away.
Yes.
That's the day you're diagnosed. You'll be fine. Here's a cat poster.
Exactly. No, they want you to chill out more. Well, they want you to exercise, but not too much. And they want you to not get overly stressed out. No one tells me to fight heart failure, but boy, did they tell me to fight cancer.
Fight heart failure. That's our band name. We are Fight Heart Failure. Good night, Wisconsin.
Fight heart owie.
All right. So, but I mean, I look at the interventions, right? Something bad happens. You rush to Google. You're not supposed to be expected to know what to do. Right? Having a book that says what to do is great, but how do people know the book is there? This is the nonprofit like Donut Hole, right? We want to be there the day you are diagnosed, but you don't know we exist. And there's no one that's going to memorize 50 nonprofits and tell you, here's 50 cancer organizations you could think about going to right now.
Yeah, and that's where patients talking to patients really, I think, works. And to find out, for instance, for me, it was the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, and now the American Heart Association. You can find organizations through other patients, and I still think patients are the way to go.
Right, but knowing they're there is the hard part, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned Facebook, some platform, I don't know.
Yeah.
That exists.
It's something.
There are groups there. I mean,
Yeah.
Help me understand the difference between I'll just say the heart community,
Yeah.
right, and the cancer community. Yeah. The parallels, we just want to learn from each other's experiences and life hacks, but is it more readily accessible and available if you're looking for it?
Yeah, I belong to a lymphoma group as well. I mean, they're all on there. You have to be careful, though, with I keep saying talk to other patients, but then also don't talk to other patients because,
Yeah.
because sometimes they tell you misinformation that they believe to be true or information that's specific to them and is not going to work for you. There are some who will tell you to be positive and stay strong no matter what you have.
Fight heart failure.
Yes. They want it because they don't want to hear anything bad. And so if someone's having a bad day, there's always somebody who goes, no, you have to think good thoughts. And I jump in and I say, no, you don't. Let them have a bad day.
Yes. Permission to be angry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All of that.
So be your own advocate is, I hate the expression because I said this, not everyone has congenital chutzpah, right?
Right.
You're not born with gumption. Not everyone is just born with that matter of factness. But I would imagine the parallels are, maybe get a second opinion if you're not happy with your doctor, fire your doctor if you're not happy with the care, right? Is it similar that way? Or you're so like, save my life, I need this thing right now?
There are people who don't know that you can ask to get a second opinion. They're afraid to upset their doctors and go do that. There are people who don't understand that there's different levels of care depending on the hospital that you go to, that if you have something that's more on the rare side, that you might need to go to a teaching hospital somewhere because that's the only place they're really treating it. And if your doctor treats you like dirt, you don't have to put up with it.
But people still think they have to.
Yeah. Now, some of that is generational. The older patients tend to think, well, doctor knows best. But I've seen younger patients, too, stick with a doctor because they think, well, they must know best. And we're all screaming at them, no, they told you the wrong thing. Go ask another doctor.
So on that note, a happy note, a congenital chutzpah note, let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back with Machete Jen. You'll learn what that is after the break. So as a writer who appreciates prose, who knows how to write for an audience, for a listenership, for readership, did it really upset you more than you could have possibly understood when you learned that medical writing for patients is terrible?
Okay, I was a medical writer, though, after I had cancer, and I was writing for patients. What do you mean that it's bad for patients?
Well, a lot of it is like just jargon. It's too many syllables. We used to joke that we had audits. This is way too many syllables. People don't speak syllables.
Yes, that's true. And you have to be very careful about knowing who your audience is. And part of the problem is we as medical writers are interviewing doctors who are talking that way. Mm-hmm. And so I often would be speaking to the doctor. They would talk in medical jargon, and I would say, okay, now talk to me like I'm a patient who doesn't understand what you're talking about. And they would go to another language. It's like a different language that they understood that they should be speaking. And then that's when I would get the non-jargony language.
So you have to trigger that in them. It's not coming out of them naturally.
Generally, if you're a medical writer, they assume that you have a certain level and can understand what they're talking about. And it's easy to fall into because you do. And so you have to be conscious of getting the patient-friendly information so that when you put it down on paper, it doesn't sound like it's for a medical student.
Right. So you were like a babblefish to human beings.
Yeah, I was a translator.
Right.
I translated doctors for patients because I'd been a patient.
Can you clone yourself?
No.
Are there people out there that do this for? I feel like this should be a $1 billion trade profession. People that translate medical jargon to human beings. There
is. They are medical writers. That's what they do. And there are science writers who can do that. And they understand it from the inside, but they also understand that somebody who's Googling heart failure for the first time isn't going to understand some of the phrasing. So you have to make it so they understand it. And it still also has to be correct.
Well, yeah, that the whole misinformation age that we're living in now.
Well, not only that, but I've written things and it goes to the doctor for approval and they tell me it's incorrect. And then I say, tell me how it's incorrect. And it's just because I'm not using the word they want me to use, because that's how doctors talk to each other. And it's, well, I have to make it so that the patients understand.
One of my trigger word safe space bullshit is the word elegant, because that's how they describe my tumor.
Oh my gosh.
You have an elegant tumor, Matthew. Like, what the fuck is wrong? What? Why? Elegant means this. No, elegant means we understand it. Well, I'm glad you understand it.
Elegant sounds like we'd have a nice pair of high heels and a beautiful gown.
Yeah. I had an elegant tumor, apparently. Stop you. Like clinical trials. Just sounds like you're going to like a Turkish gulag or something.
But my favorite word is when I get a test back and it says unremarkable. I love being unremarkable when it comes to medical tests.
So in blood cancer, I've heard this a lot. Like people don't realize lymphoma, leukemia, non-Hodgkin's is cancer. They're just words. Is that true?
Correct. And when I was first diagnosed, I was not a medical writer yet. And they said to me, you have lymphoma. We think it's Hodgkin's, which is another story. It was non-Hodgkin's, but they said you have lymphoma. And I remember thinking that is not a good word. I know.
Spooky language.
That is not a good thing. I think that's cancer. So they should say you have lymphoma, comma, which is a blood cancer.
Right. Quantify that. This parallels like women I know that get triple negative breast cancer.
Yes.
Like triple negative. That's awesome. It's triple negative.
And elegant.
And elegant. No, it's not good. Triple negative it's worse.
Not good.
Yeah. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Yeah, the whole can science speak person thing has been a theme of my career for so many years.
Yeah.
Is it just like a human instinct to want to give empathy to somebody, but you don't know you're pandering?
I think that we are taught the wrong way on how to support people. And we do it in such a way to make ourselves feel better. It's like I said about that Will Reeve. You are we think we have to cheer people up. And, oh, well, you have cancer, things, you've been handed a shit sandwich. I'm so sorry, but you're strong. You'll get through it. Mm-hmm. Or my uncle had it and he was fine.
My dog died of cancer.
I love when they tell you the people and the dogs and the cats who died of the thing that you had too. That's a whole other thing. Mm-hmm. But we don't know how to support people because we don't know how to hold space. And it's very simple, really. You just listen. Repeat back what you just heard, but not like a parrot, but just like, oh my gosh. So you just found out you have lymphoma and lymphoma is a blood cancer. And then
imagine that they knew that and you didn't.
Right. And then what happens is the person goes, yeah, and I'm really scared. Now you do not say, don't be scared. Because why?
Right.
If when you have cancer is the time to be scared.
If there's any time to be scared.
Is when you have a major diagnosis. So, and you're scared. Well, no wonder you're scared. Cancer is scary.
Right.
How are you doing today?
That's the right answer. Or right response, rather. Yeah. How are you doing today?
Well, I put them in the books so that people would know how to support other people who are sick. And if you're sick and people are telling you the wrong thing, you can gently explain to them how to do it.
Yeah, I occupy a unique space when people come to me and tell me someone has cancer because I just say that's fucking horrible. There's no good Hallmark card for this.
Yes. Yes, and a sense of humor works too, depending on who you're talking to, but it also depends on where they are at that moment.
But just saying, I'm sorry, how can I help?
Yes. However, I have a thing about how can I help.
Okay.
That's homework.
Yeah, right.
Don't give them homework. And instead of saying, how can I help, offer specific things. You know what? I'm free next week if you want me to drive you to chemo. I make a great baked ziti. Is that something you'd like? I could bring it this week. Come up with specific things that you can do so that you're not giving them homework.
There used to be these things called like cancer registries where you would list the things you need. And basically it's like GoFundMe for chores.
Yes. Yes. I remember that there was one set up for me. Two of my neighbors did the most amazing things. One, because my kids were 8 and 10, so they had to get places, and I couldn't always get them
They
places.
didn't drive themselves yet.
They didn't drive yet. That was when they were 9 and 10, 11. There was one parent who organized all the carpool to take them to soccer and swimming and all that sort of thing, and play dates. They had more play dates that summer than they ever did, just to keep them busy. And then another neighbor set up for people to cook for us and set up specific days and took down what you were cooking, so I didn't wind up with 12 big CDs.
That'd be a great problem to have.
Day. No, it's not good because there's nowhere to put it.
Give it to the PTA.
There you go.
Yeah, you are the bake sale.
Yes.
So in your book, what's it called? How to Be Sick, right?
Yeah.
Like that is like, what can you do to take care of yourself when you're panicked and scared? Like what's that 3 a.m. moment that you talk to yourself about?
Yeah. So how to be sick is a lot of what I've learned on being sick for a long time.
Wait, but you
on
look
and off.
great.
Thank you. I'm obviously fine.
Yes.
I look
Nothing wrong with you.
perfectly fine. Never mind the pacemaker that's making my ventricles go as we
Well,
speak.
just don't look under the hood.
Okay.
The outside looks fantastic.
How to be sick came out of some of the things that I did. For instance, when I was trying to get a diagnosis for what was wrong with me, and it was cancer, and the buffoon who was telling me I had pneumonia and was treating me with Levaquin and having me walk around that way.
Misdiagnoses are awesome.
Yeah. When I was 2 months from death, he told me eventually, you need to see a pulmonologist. Well, I was 40 years old. Why would I have a pulmonologist? I didn't even smoke. Why didn't you know, where I'm just going to go see a pulmonologist? No, that's not going to happen. And it's going to take 2 months to get in to see one. And even though I didn't know then that I didn't have 2 months, I knew it was important enough that I had to do it in a hurry. So I wrote a script. And I got a list of doctors, and I called each office so that I wouldn't sound like a raving lunatic, panicked. I have a tumor and I need to see somebody. And they're not going to put you in. You're a brand new patient. But because I had it written out specifically, I knew what words to use. That I had an X-ray that said at the bottom, possible in medical ease, possible tumor, recommend CAT scan, which I didn't find out for 2 weeks. And that I had been treated already for pneumonia, and that I had, all of the symptoms of the things that are going to make them listen because they're pulmonologists and they understand. And I managed to get in the next day with a brand new pulmonologist. He came in, he took my X-ray, put it up on the what do you call that? The light board.
The light board, yeah.
Pulled it down immediately and said, that's a tumor. I'm sending you to the hospital right now, and I'm going to call ahead and tell them you're coming.
Wow. Congratulations.
All because I wrote a great script.
That's it. So are there like a top 10 things to do when you're sick that are like very practical? Like breathe, like get over it. Like there's no like, what is self-help, right? When you're dealing with this panic and the guilt you might have for your family having to deal with this, right?
Yeah. Well, speaking of family, one of the things you need to do is you need to create these circles of care around you. Not everybody gets access to you. Not everybody knows everything that's going on. You don't want to wind up having to give your entire health history every time you just go to the supermarket to buy Cheerios and you run into somebody. So in the middle, obviously, is your immediate family, your doctor, maybe a close friend or a neighbor. And then you go out and you make a circle around that. And the circle around that is your kids' teachers, the coaches, the people who have to, your boss, people who need to know what's going on, but they don't have to know that you spent the night wandering around the house sobbing because you're on prednisone and sad and you can't cry in front of your kids.
Great medication.
With my current condition, have done it for 8 months in a row. and was awake for most of that, and also wrote a lot of books because, man, I was on fire.
Creative prolificness from side effects may include creative writing.
It was fantastic for my career. Even my cat would look at me like, "Why are you up? It's 4. Dude, come back to bed."
Like Wired on coffee, but it's the wrong medication.
Yeah, it was.
Wait, what were you writing? Like you were just inspired to write stuff about what's going on now, or channel other new narratives?
No, I was working on my client as a ghostwriter. I was working on my client's book, so it was. I think I got things done much more quickly.
Wow,
and prolifically.
Well, I called you Machete Jen before. I think it's important to recognize you're working with me right now on a book, and I have creative logorrhea.
Yes.
It's a congenital disorder that I was born with. It's probably in my biomarker test that hasn't happened yet. But I love when people can take my crap and just make it so much more. Like, is that an inherent skill you have? Or is that probably coming from parenting?
Yeah, I don't know where I got it from, but I was called Machete Jen because I was working on a TEDx program. And one of the speakers came in and we were supposed to be doing rehearsals. And they were supposed to have 12-minute speeches, and his was 17 minutes. And he was about to have rehearsals in about 40 minutes. So we went in the other room, and I sliced out 5 minutes of his speech and got it down. And that's when someone else goes, "Hey, good thing you got Machete Jen." And it's true. I can edit down anything to its basics. And I think the reason I can do that is because I blogged for 15 years. And you had to keep it concise and quick. And I didn't have a lot of time because I had the school bus was coming right back. So that's why I can do everything quickly and effectively.
So what was your pre-cancer blog about?
Before I had cancer, I was one of the OG mom bloggers back in the 2000s.
Wow.
I had a blog called mamasaid.net. That was my own. I also blogged.
.net is so 2000s.
Thank you. And I had...
You have a Hotmail account too?
No. I also wrote a blog for Good Housekeeping for 2 years about parenting tweens. And during that time, I had just signed on with them. I got cancer. And I said to them,
You and timing, something wrong with that.
I said, I can't pretend I don't have cancer. So they would let me write. It was Cancer Thursdays, and I would write about what was going on. It was...
Well, that was back when it was really weird to see cancer articles in mainstream mag. I remember my mom. Did you know Erin Zamet Ruddy?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, from Glamour magazine.
Yes.
Yeah, she's a storied hero.
Yes.
Just for the listeners, I'm going to try to get her on the show. It's been a while. Erin Zamet Ruddy had, I think, CLL or CML, the one that Gleevec cures.
I think it was CML.
And she was one of the first patients on Gleevec, which was a miracle medication that puts your cancer into a stasis. And she was living with this for so many years, and she went off to have a baby, and it was a big thing. But she was the first media person I knew. Yeah. I'm glad you knew her too. But then Geraldine Lucas wrote a piece called "Why I Wore Lipstick to My Mastectomy," and you were at the dawn of giving the world this sort of a normalization of the stories.
Yeah, and I was doing it in real time. I wasn't looking back on what had happened. I was actually in the hospital trading People magazines.
Yeah.
with other people with other patients just to have some sort of sense of reality. That was when Paris Hilton went to jail, and I enjoyed that week.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of memories of the spring of 1996 when I was treated, but I do remember that I listened to Cracked Rear View by Hootie. I listened to Jagged Little Pill by Alanis Morissette, and listened to, what was it, Pocket Full of Kryptonite by Spin Doctors.
Oh my God, yes.
That's kind of all I remember from the spring.
That's all there is to remember from 1996 anyway.
And then Independence Day came out that summer, and the world exploded. And they're like, all right, this is analogous to my life.
Yeah,
why not?
That's fitting.
So just to wrap up, what were some of the parenting books you wrote in the old days?
So the first one was called 14 Hours Till Bedtime.
I love it already.
It was a collection of my essays that had been in Women's Day parenting, magazine. And then I had a book called You're a Good Mom and Your Kids Aren't So Bad Either. I actually wrote that on the oncology floor because I had a deadline. And then I had a series of 3 books called the Stop Second Guessing Yourself Guides. One's for babies, toddlers, and preschoolers. And I wrote all of that through radiation and remission.
You're oncoprolific.
Oncoprolific, yeah, it was probably just steroids, though.
Well, you're prednisone prolific too, apparently, too.
I'm telling you, it's a great drug for that.
I'm so happy to have you on the show again. I mean, we could talk for hours. It's the story is incredible. So where can people get these great books?
You can go to Amazon.com to get the Just Diagnosed guides. There's one about how to be sick, one how to support someone who's sick. I wrote one on heart failure, for obvious reasons. And I wrote one on sarcoidosis, which is another condition I have that I'm not going to explain right now.
It's a lot of syllables.
It's a lot of syllables, and that's the one that's a lot of prednisone.
Ah, and you're jensinger.com?
jensinger.com if you want to hear more about Machete Jen.
All right. Thank you for coming on the show. I love you. I adore you. You're an amazing person, and I hope you guys liked the show. If you did, then keep liking the show. We'll see you next time.
Out of Patience with Matthew Zachary is a production of Matthew Zachary Worldwide. The executive producer is Matthew Zachary. It is mixed and edited by Kyle Moore. If you like the show, ratings and reviews are always welcome wherever you get your podcasts. If you have guest suggestions or would like to learn more about sponsorship opportunities, email podcast@matthewzachary.com. For more information about Matthew Zachary and Matthew Zachary Worldwide, visit matthewzachary.com.